Ecotourism is fast becoming a very popular trend worldwide. Parts of rural Ireland are ideally suited, with natural habitats and unspoiled rugged landscape. Ecotourism is small-scale, low-impact travel to natural areas that conserve the environment, while enhancing the cultural integrity of the local community.
Tourism, if it's not managed correctly, can have huge impacts and can, in some cases, destroy the very product that the tourists are coming to enjoy. So we need to start adopting the principles of sustainable tourism in Ireland so we have something to pass on to future generations.
Ireland's first cross-border ecotourism destination is a defined area in the northwest, including all of Leitrim and Fermanagh, as well as part of neighbouring counties Donegal, Sligo, Cavan and Monaghan. The Greenbox was set up to train ecotourism enterprises.
Ecotourism advocates local ownership. So, for example, if a B&B is being used by an ecotourist, that money stays in that community. And the food they eat while they're staying there is produced locally. So the money goes back into the local producers, the farmers, the cheesemakers, etc. So that money stays within the community and stimulates economic activity.
Tell us about the Greenbox and how, first of all, you got involved in it.
I'm working in Sligo Institute of Technology, and as part of my job I'm a member of the Western Development Tourism Programme, and we worked in collaboration with them to provide education programmes for the people on the ground who needed it to develop ecotourism products there.
The Kingfisher Cycle Trail is a Greenbox ecotourism project.
So you're going to do a loop of Kingfisher Cycle Trail.
Communities from both sides of the border worked together and designed Ireland's first long-distance cycle trail. A number of members of the Greenbox have achieved the prestigious European Eco-Label Award, the EU Flower, so I'm off to meet them. Here, in the hills of North County Leitrim, a place of tranquility and rugged natural landscape, Nolan Tier runs an organic health farm.
Well, what the Greenbox has done is they've picked the Eco-Label, the EU Flower, as a standard of ecotourism. So while we were always doing things in an environmental and a conservative way, we weren't monitoring it. There was no proof that we were doing it. So what the EU Flower does is it monitors everything. It monitors your BTUs and your usage of water and your usage of energy in all areas. And that's actually a very useful thing to do because you can actually see yourself bringing that usage down, and that feels good. And it also feels good for people who stay here to know that they're staying somewhere that really is trying to make a difference. All our food is organic, and we're very lucky to have an organic grower just 3 miles away.
Hi Ingrid, how are you?
So people will book and I will ring Ingrid and say, okay, I have 4 people arriving for lunch today. And I give her my order, and there we go, it's there on the table for lunchtime, so it's as fresh as can be.
You probably haven't had that before, yellow courgette.
Organic food is a big part of the ethos of the Greenbox. So as demand grows, so does the need for training.
The Western Organic Network is a training organisation, and it's subsidised to provide low-cost training to people who are interested in getting involved in organic growing, whether it's horticulture or livestock. The courses would be flexible in the sense that they're built around what a farmer or a small producer is able to access.
If you're in search of outdoor adventures, the Coralie Activity Centre in Belcoo, County Fermanagh, is the place to go. This centre focuses on low-impact outdoor pursuits for adults and children.
We signed up with the Greenbox about 2 years ago. They were marketing our type of product. We were involved in this product for the last 12 years. We've got our water park, which consists of water trampolines. We do canoeing, we've got windsurfing, and on dry land then we do climbing. We got archery, we do caving, so quite a wide selection of different sports to suit various abilities.
And Jeff, you're a parent here, you've got 3 kids here, I gather.
Yeah.
And why'd you come here?
Well, the children love it. There's lots of activities. I love Fermanagh. You know, I get out, the children are on the water park, I'm out there in the middle of the lake on a canoe. I just put down the paddle and just close my eyes and just relax.
Sure. I like the freedom of a self-catering holiday, so I'm on my way to meet Majella and Damien at their little Crom cottages, located on the shores of Lough Erne in County Fermanagh.
We've been farming here, and as farm incomes went down and the emphasis maybe switched away from production a wee bit, we felt that maybe if we diversified into tourism, that it might help supplement our incomes on the farm.
What actually do you do that's ecotourism?
Within the cottages we have energy efficient light bulbs, we recycle all our waste, we catch rainwater.
And we also monitor the usage of energy in the house and try and keep it down, and make people aware of how they can save energy.
So energy and waste and everything is managed well. And do they encourage, for example, fostering and protecting wildlife and nature and the natural environment?
Yeah.
Is that part
we provide information on local biodiversity in the area, but the flora and fauna and the mammals and birds that there are, and people are very interested in it.
I'm now on the last leg of my journey, on the Ballyshannon Loop of the Kingfisher Trail. Here on the northwest coast of Ireland, in Rossnowla, County Donegal, a community cooperative restored 4 self-catering traditional cottages.
We formed this little group which eventually turned into the co-op.
Community cooperative?
Yes, community development. I suppose the first thing we did, Hugh John, was to show a walk.
This is a walk along the coast,
A walk along the coast here, just right back behind us here from Rossnowla, almost to Ballyshannon.
We produced this map.
Where's the track?
There's it marked the whole way from Rossnowla. That's it, all along the shore.
Did you actually make the track too and
Well,
do
we
all of the
didn't
work
pave it only in certain areas.
I know.
But we did across the little brooks and shocks. We put in little bridges,
And
whatever it needed.
Stiles over the fences to make sure people
Yes.
are safe, because kids and all people walk it, yourself.
I came here because I know you've got your award. I
Yes.
believe you've just got the...
Very proud. We're very proud of this European Eco-Label certified. This is our plaque for green tourism. Yeah.
Congratulations, because these are the first in Ireland. Is
Yes,
that right?
the very first in the 32 counties.
Congratulations.
And we were one of the first 4 to go to Europe to be registered.
Whether you want to enjoy its tranquility, nature and local food produce, or revel in its outdoor water pursuits, the Greenbox is a journey of discovery for everyone. Every household in Ireland is producing on average just over 1 tonne of waste per year. Since the introduction of waste charges, there's been a huge increase in recycling and diverting waste from landfill. Of the household waste that's accounted for, just under a quarter is recycled, with 3/4 going to landfill. But unfortunately, it's estimated that a further 200,000 tonnes of household waste cannot be accounted for. So where is this waste going? Take Wicklow, for example. 3 illegal landfills were found there between 1997 and 2002. Today, large-scale illegal dumping has been reduced dramatically, but there's a huge increase in small-scale household waste being illegally dumped in places like the Wicklow Dublin Uplands area. Why is this happening?
The estimate that the EPA puts on it is that around about 21% of households either do not avail of or are not served by a household waste collection service. In many cases, people are probably bringing their waste to a civic amenity site or to the local landfill. Some people might be fly tipping their waste. In other cases, we know that people are backyard burning their waste, and that is a problem, and it's something that needs to be dealt with.
How dangerous is that in terms of a way of dealing with waste?
The typical household bin will contain things like plastic. Even, magazines might be laminated. They may have plastic laminates on them. So there's a lot of materials within the typical bin which actually can be quite damaging if they're burnt. Because when you're burning the material in an uncontrolled manner, you're burning at a much lower temperature than in controlled thermal treatment of waste. And it's under those conditions that you can get a lot of pollutants, like the production of dioxins and other chemicals, which can be quite injurious to your health. So while people might think it's a fairly innocuous thing to do, it isn't. It's a dangerous thing to do.
73% of dioxins emitted in Ireland comes from uncontrolled, low-temperature burning of waste. This makes backyard burning of waste the single biggest source of dioxins released into the Irish environment. Backyard burning doesn't literally mean the backyard. Some householders are using their open fires and stoves to burn household waste.
A lot of people are, because of bin charges or whatever, I find that everyone's burning rubbish. I mean, everybody.
Really? I mean, of all the fires that you clean out, most of them are burning rubbish?
I'd say 90%.
Really?
Yeah.
So Patrick, what sort of things are people burning now in fireplaces?
Well, they're burning mainly household rubbish. Everything from plastics to shoes, runners. I've even found nappies. I mean, it's...
Plastic?
Everything. They're burning everything.
And do they know they're doing damage?
A lot of people don't, to be honest with you. I was doing an elderly lady there just 2 weeks ago, and I could smell the plastic walking in the door. And I says, sorry, love, I says, do you burn plastic? And she says, yes, I do, because... And I says, why? And she says, because when the fire dies down, I throw a plastic bottle on it, and it just reignites. So I explained to her the dangers of dioxins and all the carcinogenics that come from this that we breathe in.
Right
away. She genuinely didn't know.
No,
so she said she'd stop, and...
Sure.
So I felt good about that.
Dioxins have a detrimental effect on human health, food safety and the environment. Alongside backyard burning, there's been a huge increase in small-scale illegal dumping, fly tipping and using public litter bins to illegally dispose of household waste in the Wicklow Dublin Uplands area. To deal with this escalating problem, the non-governmental organisation PURE was founded.
PURE, which stands for Protecting Upland and Rural Environments, was established in September 2006. That's when it was officially launched. Now, it brings together for the first time a number of statutory and non-statutory organisations to combat the increasing problem of illegal dumping. Already, the project has collected 10 tonnes, and that was in the first three weeks of the project. It takes it off the landscape because we have researched and we've seen and it's proven that if you leave something there, especially illegal dumping, long enough, it attracts more illegal dumping. So the truck responds to it and takes it off the landscape. We're coming across bags of household waste, we're coming across furniture, we're coming across mattresses, contents of bathrooms, sitting rooms, the kitchen sink. 2 bags, 15 bags, 20 bags, then you can come across a whole truckload. Between the man in the van to a car boot to a van load to a truckload. You can find them in watercourses. You can, again, electrical equipment, which now you can recycle in any recycling centre. And then you'll find mattresses dumped on fields, dumped out in the heather up in the bogland areas. So a diverse amount of material has been dumped and a considerable amount of damage to both habitat, species and human health as well has been quite affected by it as well. So this is what they're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hear bottles here and everything, cans. And you investigate this dumping when you see rubbish dumped?
Any site that is actually affected, we go in there with the enforcement officers, we look for certain evidence, we data and we record each separate incident so we can find out who's responsible, and then we proceed with prosecutions.
There's been a lot more prosecutions happening under the waste legislation. In the period 2004-2005, there were over 500 prosecutions taken under the Waste Management Act by local authorities. And for the cases of very serious illegal dumping, these are now making their way through the courts as well, particularly cases involving illegal dumping in the Greater Dublin area. And one case that has already passed through the courts resulted in one individual being sent to jail for 6 months and another individual being fined €150,000. So the sanctions are beginning to bite when it comes to serious illegal dumping. And I think the message is that, particularly on organised illegal dumping, that they will get caught and they will be brought through the courts.
What we're trying to do is promote responsible waste disposal for all the people within this area, and not just building people or people involved in waste collection, but also the individual householder themselves, and they can do something about this.
So Ian, if you're getting somebody to collect waste from your home, what should you look out for?
If anybody is, say, refurbishing or renovating their house and somebody comes to collect your waste, every waste collector has to have, by law, a waste permit. If they don't have a waste permit, unfortunately it's going to end up here in this environment. It's going to end up in the Wicklow Dublin Uplands. So check for a waste permit, and that's one of the main things we ask people to do.
If you witness any illegal dumping in the Wicklow Dublin Uplands area, you should call the EPA confidential line 1850 365 121. We inherited good air quality in Ireland. This is partly due to the restriction of smoky coal in the 1980s and the removal of lead from petrol, and the fact that unlike the rest of Europe, we've never been heavily industrialised.
Air isn't confined to borders or continents. Air is transboundary and is one of our most crucial environmental resources. So when we look at what's in the air we breathe, we need to look at the whole of Europe, indeed the world. So how does transboundary air pollution travel across Europe?
Well, here in Ireland we are lucky in that obviously for the most part we have a prevailing wind from the west, and so we get clean oceanic air coming in, and the issue there is the extent to which we would add emissions from our own sources to that air as it passes on towards Britain and the continent. However, in certain conditions, we get air masses coming across from Europe that are polluted. We monitor at Carnsore, we also monitor at Johnstown Castle in Wexford. We saw in our monitoring stations in the heart of Ireland, high levels of particulate matter that really one might have blamed on local sources, but they did seem particularly high. And it was only when we looked at what the mathematical models were telling us, it was quite clear that this was an air mass that originated in Europe.
Ireland is on the Atlantic and benefits from its clean westerly winds. However, we also generate acidifying gases, such as nitrogen oxide, which migrate and contribute to Europe's air pollution. These form acid rain, which damages ecosystems, creates ground-level ozone and particulates, and carries a huge health risk. At times of easterly winds, polluted air masses from Europe carrying particulates and ozone migrate over to Ireland and peak well above the EU limit. For health reasons, the EU has set a limit for particulate emissions. Ireland, with its westerly Atlantic winds, is usually well below this. However, when the winds blow from the east, polluted air masses from Europe migrate over Ireland and at certain times can go well above this limit. In 2001, Ireland, along with the rest of Europe, signed up to the Emissions Ceiling Directive, which empowers the EU to cap emissions of 4 acidifying gases by 2010.
They are sulphur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, ammonia and volatile organic compounds. And here in Ireland we have targets set, as does every other European country. Overall, we're doing quite well in respect of 3 of those gases. We are reducing sulphur dioxide, reducing VOCs and ammonia. The 4th gas, however, is problematic. It's the nitrogen oxides. The deadline is 2010. The target is 65,000 tonnes. We are still over 120,000 tonnes. We're well off achieving the target.
There's a tight control of acid gas emissions from industry in Ireland today. But with the ever-increasing volumes of transport and very little controls on their emissions, curbing nitrogen oxides generated by transport will pose our greatest challenge.
In fact, road transport is the highest emitter of nitrogen oxides at 41%, followed by power generation at 27%.
So what do you think of the air quality in Dublin?
Could be better. Could be a lot to be improved. I mean, you look at some of the buildings and there's a lot of dirt and smut in the buildings and too much cars. Everyone's driving too many cars these days.
In certain places it's very polluted, like with all the traffic. It's kind of smoky, hard to breathe sometimes.
And not great. Partly or largely because of the car pollution. I used to live in Pearse Street, and in the morning, you could tell what was rush hour just by the air quality was very, very bad. And I live close enough there; it hasn't got any better in recent years.
And not very nice.
Okay. Do you notice it?
Yeah. Well, we live in the country, so sure. When you come in, there's a big difference.
Okay. What do you think is the main cause of air pollution?
Trucks. Yeah. Car pollution, I suppose. Yeah,
cars, I'd say.
The ones that we're most worried about here in Ireland and in Dublin City are oxides of nitrogen, which are emitted any time where we have a high temperature source. So typically where we have a combustion process in a power station used for electricity supply, in the engine of a motor car.
And what happens in the car that causes this emission?
Well, when we burn our fuel in the car, we get very high temperatures in the cylinders of the car, in the very core of the engine itself. And in those circumstances, the nitrogen and the oxygen combine together to form either NO or NO2, different combinations of those two compounds.
So these nitrogen and oxygen atoms, are they coming from the atmosphere?
Yes, nitrogen is the most plentiful element in the atmosphere, and oxygen is the second most plentiful. So we feel like the raw materials that we need to form oxides of nitrogen are available abundantly. And that's one of the problems in trying to control their formation, because we don't really have much control over the original source, if you like, of those compounds. But what we do know is that in city centres, such as in Dublin or our other large urban areas, and adjacent to the large motorways, we find the highest concentrations of nitrogen dioxide.
Do you have concerns about, say, your health or the environment when it concerns pollution?
You know, you hear more people getting more and more respiratory illnesses. My mum has asthma and she'd be very sensitive to it. And I think it's getting worse. You're hearing more of young people getting respiratory problems. It must be related to the air pollution. And you know, we're building so many houses further and further away from the city that people are just travelling longer distances, and that must ultimately have a knock-on effect when you think about all the pollution that will go into the air. You know,
because we don't really see we don't really notice the direct effects of it. Obviously, there are long-term effects, but we don't really. It
doesn't affect your day-to-day life at all.
Exactly.
Really.
It's hard to believe that the air we breathe has the potential to make us seriously ill. Photochemical reactions involving nitrogen oxides and VOC gases form ground-level ozone in mainland Europe, and sometimes here. This carries a health risk, as do particulates, when inhaled and deposited in the lungs. So who is most affected?
Well, the reality is that everybody is affected. There is no doubt that all of our lives are shortened that little bit by pollution. But generally when we speak about these things, we mean who's particularly at risk. So people with established diseases, people with heart disease, with heart failure, they're at particular risk. People with asthma are at particular risk, people with bronchitis and emphysema. And there may be 250,000 asthmatics in this country. And they would be a very big group that would be very much aware of the adverse effect of pollution on their breathing. The way we measure these things is in micrograms per cubic metre. And it's known that for every 10 microgram increase in pollution, it adds about 3% to daily mortality. And this has been tested. It's done in 26 cities throughout Europe. And we find that 10 microgram increase in pollution, 3% increase in daily mortality. After we cleared up the last terrible smog in Dublin, there was a 16% drop in respiratory mortality after the clean air bill.
So we are beginning to achieve better understanding of what's happening in relation to the air masses coming into Ireland and what's leaving Ireland. So this helps us to make informed decisions when it comes to negotiating with our European partners.
Cleaning up the atmosphere and reducing the production of nitrogen oxides in order to meet our 2010 target requires drastic action.
Air quality is transboundary. It's a resource we all draw from. It's a resource we contribute to, so it's also a resource that we can damage. It's important that we continue to play our part to maintain good air quality.
In our next programme, we look at the quality of our drinking water, the public role and rights to object to pollution and nuisance from industry, and forestry as an opportunity for farmers. See you then.